We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin. Well, the Rittenhouse trial is over. The jury has spoken and declared him not guilty. This was a trial that was filled with lies from the media and politicians. The lies are still being spread. So even though the trial is over, this is still being talked about and still being lied about. So we're going to go over the facts and give you the raw, naked truth. So, what was the case about? One of the biggest lies that has been spread is that this was a case about white supremacy and white privilege. Nothing could have been further from the truth. This was a case about 3 white men who were shot by a white boy. Race had nothing to do with it. The 3 attackers were criminals. They were not protesters. They were rioters. Rittenhouse was not a white supremacist. In fact, his social media posts prior to the shooting show he was a supporter of Black Lives Matter. Now, Rosenbaum, one of the people who was shot and killed, was a registered sex offender. He was charged with 11 counts of rape and pedophilia, which he took a plea deal for. He served 12 and a half years in jail, and he had open cases and jumped bail for one of them. Huber, the second man who was killed, had previously been found guilty of a felony for strangulation and suffocation, domestic abuse, and false imprisonment with a dangerous weapon. Finally, Grosskreutz, the man who lived, was convicted of a felony, but the felony was expunged. He also has a prior misdemeanor conviction for intoxicated use of a firearm. So these were not peaceful people. These were criminals who were out there rioting, trying to cause as much trouble as possible. And you can find all of the supporting court documents for this information online. Now, the second big lie that the media harped on was that Rittenhouse had no ties to Kenosha and came just to cause trouble during the riots. In fact, Rittenhouse worked as a lifeguard in Kenosha, had friends in Kenosha, and his father, grandmother, aunt, uncle, and a cousin all live in Kenosha. He was a police explorer for the Grace Lake Police Department and a cadet with the Antioch Fire Department. He was also a certified lifeguard trained in CPR, defibrillator use, and what he called during the trial, basic life support. Okay, he lived in Antioch, Illinois, but he was far from an outsider to Kenosha. The prosecutor made him sound like, oh, he'd never been to Kenosha, he came to cause trouble. Not true. As we've just said, he worked there, he had family and friends there, and he lived 20 miles outside of the city of Kenosha. The media made a big deal about him living in another state, but this didn't make him an outsider. He had those significant ties to Kenosha. And the truth is, this was no different than someone from New Jersey or Connecticut working in New York City or going to New York for a night out. People cross state lines all the time on a daily basis. This was a Hail Mary attempt by the media to make Rittenhouse look bad because they had no actual facts to back up their story. Why did the media tell these lies? They told them because if Rittenhouse fired in self-defense, it meant there was a threat to be defended from. That tears apart the myth that these were peaceful protests. They were not peaceful protests. They were riots. This was shown on video numerous times, most notably by MSNBC, which showed footage of their reporter talking about the peaceful protests while fires raged behind him. The liberal left in the media were invested in projecting the image of the Black Lives Matter protests as peaceful, even though riots raged across the country. The other major lie that the media told was that Rittenhouse brought an illegal AR-15 across state lines. The AR-15 in question was owned by Matthew Black, a friend of Rittenhouse. It was a legal gun that was kept at Black's home in Kenosha. It was bought at a local hardware store. Now, Rittenhouse paid for the gun, and Black agreed he would give it to Rittenhouse after Rittenhouse turned 18. So while there is some irregularities in that purchase, and Black is currently being charged for those irregularities, the gun was legal and it never crossed state lines. With all of these lies circling the case, the jury had to focus on the facts. So what were the facts that came up in the case that supported self-defense? The video showed he did not fire on anyone until his life was in danger. The video also showed he tried to avoid the people who were threatening him. This video was drone footage from the FBI that the prosecutor introduced into evidence, as well as footage from a freelance journalist covering the event. His footage was submitted by the defense, and that freelance reporter testified that it was self-defense. The prosecutor's own witnesses testified that it was self-defense. Even Grosskreutz testified that he had a gun pointed at Rittenhouse when he was shot. Now, should Rittenhouse have been there? That's a matter of opinion. Most rational people would not have gone down to the riot. According to Rittenhouse's testimony, he went down to help. Now, witnesses stated that they saw Rittenhouse cleaning graffiti and providing medical attention to those people who needed it. As a police explorer and fire cadet, he had received first aid training. The police had been ordered to stand clear of the situation, so no law enforcement or medical help was coming to the area. He felt he needed to help a community that he was a part of. He brought the gun to protect himself from the rioters. He did not fire on anyone until he was being beaten to death with a gun pointed at him. This is the definition of self-defense. According to the law, the fact that he had a gun was not a provocation. Had he used the gun, or even pointed it at anyone, that would have been provocation, and he would have been guilty. But all of the video shows that did not happen. Ironically, in order to induce fear in the jury, the prosecutor took the AR-15 and pointed it at the jury. Had one of the jury members then shot the prosecutor, they would have been found not guilty by self-defense because the prosecutor was already pointing a gun at them. So, despite the lies being spread by the left, this was not a case of white supremacy or white privilege. This also was not a case for the Second Amendment, as some on the right are claiming. This was a repudiation of the riots that happened last year, and it is a repudiation of the orders for the police to stand down. If the police had been allowed to do their job, or if the National Guard had been called in, this would never have happened. The left lied about the case, to protect their agenda. President Biden referred to Rittenhouse as a white supremacist to get elected. According to lawyers familiar with the topic, Rittenhouse now has slander and libel cases against all of these people and the media organizations. The lies have failed. And that's the raw, naked truth. You can catch us every episode at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us, as well as the rest of the Xvadio podcast network, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts. We'll see you next time.